So today we'll talk about male reproductive system or male reproductive physiology, and it started with a overview or just brief introduction of the anatomy of the male reproductive system. Okay, so male reproductive systems are made up of various glands which participates, or also called the organ, which participate in the reproduction. Apart from this, they are also made up of ductal system which transmit the sperms from the site of origin to the site of fertilization. So first gland which is responsible for the production of the sperms and other things. So they are called primary male sex gland, or also called as a gonad. So these glands, in case of male, they are a pair of testes. In case of female, they are ovaries. So today we are talking about male reproductive system. So here male gonads are a pair of testes, and their main function of these testes are to produce sperm, that is called spermatogenesis, and also to produce a male sex hormone, that is testosterone. Apart from the just, it is not enough to produce only sperms and testosterone. We need other supportive systems that can help the sperms to survive for longer time to reach to the ovum. So there are accessory glands are also present in our reproductive system, and that is first is a seminal vesicle. So this is a seminal vesicles. If you can see this seminal vesicle just it is attached to the vas deferens. This is a extension of vas deferens. It attached to the vas deferens just before entering to the prostate. Prostate is another gland which is present at the base of the urinary bladder, and just before the origin of the urethra, the prostate is surround on all direction in the urethra, and urethra will pierce the prostate. So before entering to the prostate, the seminal vesicle will be there. It is close to the rectum, and anteriorly there is a urinary bladder, and posteriorly there is a rectum, and it secretes a fluid that is called seminal fluid, and that is forms a major contribution in semen. It is alkaline in nature, and it mixes with the sperm whenever ejaculation occurs. So whenever ejaculation occurs, sperms come through vas deferens, and when it comes and when ejaculation occurs, the seminal vesicle also contract, and that fluid is also added to the ejaculation, and that is forms a part of the semen. The another gland are bulbourethral glands, are also called as a corpus gland. It is a pea-sized shaped gland present just after the prostate and at the base of the urethra, and these also secrete mucoid secretion, and they add to the semen. And next important, one of the largest accessory gland is prostate, which is present at the base of the um, urethra, and it also produces a milky white type of the secretion, and it added to the ejaculation at the time of ejaculation. At the time of ejaculation, added to that ejaculation and forms almost 30% of total semen volume. And this is also in alkaline nature, so it gives alkaline nature to the semen. Then come to the ductal part where the sperm is formed, and the sperm from the testis, it goes till it reaches to the female genital tract. So that will form the ductal system. So it will start with epididymis. Epididymis is the just covering of the testes. So here it is like a sickle shape capsule-like structure will be there, and it is made up of large convoluted tubules. In these tubules, that is spermatozoa, which are as we form, will be stored in this epididymis, and it will remain viable still there in the epididymis. So it can remain there for a month. Whatever sperms is formed, they can remain in the epididymis for the month, and they allow the sperm also to become more mature in epididymis, and they also provide nourishment for the sperm so that they will be healthy throughout this period they're staying in the epididymis. But in the epididymis, the sperms are still non-motile. They doesn't acquire motility even in the epididymis. And whenever sexual act occurs, it will cause a peristaltic movement, and this sperms will goes into the vas deferens with the peristaltic movement. You keep pushes in the next duct, that is called vas deferens or ductus deferens. So this is the just extension of the epididymis and form a tubule like structure which gives the passage of the sperms from the epididymis till it reaches to the urethra. Okay, and it along with the seminal vesicles, these vas deferens together will form, and they together will form the common duct that is called ejaculatory duct. Okay, and this ejaculatory duct has a high peristaltic moment, and they pushes the sperms or semen, we can call it as a semen now, semen into the urethra during intercourse. Okay, during this moment also sperms are non-motile. So here also sperms can be stored for some time before sexual act, so it can be stored there also. Then come to the ejaculatory duct. Ejaculatory duct are a common duct for the seminal vesicle and vas deferens, and it has a slit-like opening and open into the uh, uh, prostatic urethra. So when a prostatic urethra contracts, when the contraction occurs, it will close this ejaculatory duct, and it doesn't allow the urine to pass back to the ejaculatory duct. So that is how it prevented the backflow of the urine coming through the ejaculatory duct by the coming from the urethra. It doesn't allow it comes through the ejaculatory duct. That is a major function of ejaculatory duct, and it also uh, uh, push the sperms when intercourse is going on through the ejaculatory duct. It push the sperms into the urethra. Then come to the urethra. In case of male, urethra is longer. It's somewhere around 18 to 20 centimeter long. In case of female, it is somewhere around 4 to 6 centimeter long. In male, urethra forms a common pathway for both urine and semen, while in case of female, it has a pathway only for urine. Okay, so this urethra also contain the bulbourethral gland that has secretion gland, lubricate it. It also allows the pathway for the semen, and when during intercourse, this urethra reaches to the female genital tract and deposit the semen in female genital tract, more specifically in the upper portion of vagina or at the base of the cervix. Then other supportive structures were present in male reproductive system. One is a spermatic cord. Spermatic cord is an extension of the mm, inguinal ligament, and in the inguinal ligament it contains various structures like nerves, blood vessels, which supplying to the testes, and also it contains a vas deferens or ductus deferens, and which goes towards the urethra. So all those will be there. If you palpate the testis just above, you will see the some smooth, silky cord-like structure, and that nothing but the spermatic cord. So whenever we'll do male sterilization operation, all those things, this spermatic cord will palpate, and then we'll slit open the skin just above that spermatic cord, and we'll take out the spermatic cord outside, and then we again slit open the spermatic cord, and then from that we'll identify the vas deferens, and then we'll cut the vas deferens, and this is how we'll do male sterilization surgery. Okay, the another is the scrotum. Scrotum is a extension of the skin from the abdomen, and no, sorry, away from the extra pouch away from the abdomen, and in this pouch the testes will be hang along with the epididymis and lower portion of the vas deferens. Advantage why the testes are kept here, because for spermatogenesis or body temperature 37 degrees Celsius is very harmful for the sperms. So for spermatogenesis, we need little bit lower temperature, that is somewhere around 32 degrees Celsius, and that lower temperature is maintained in scrotum, that allows for the normal spermatogenesis. If testis doesn't present in the scrotum and it is present somewhere in the abdomen, then we call it a cryptorchidism. And in that situation, since the abdominal temperature is high, it doesn't allow the normal spermatogenesis, and that can cause sterility to the patient. Then next, another important organ is penis. Penis is somewhere around same structure is somewhere around 10 to 12 centimeter long, and it is also called as a male copulatory organ, and it allows the pathway for the urethra is center. It urethra is passes through, and that gives common passage for the both urine and semen. This penis is divided in three part: root, which is inside the abdomen cavity, you cannot see, then body, and then glans penis. Glans penis is the most sensitive part of the penis, and it is important for the sexual sensation and sexual desire. It has to be stimulated, then only sexual desire will be occur. So that the glans penis will be there, and whenever the sexual desire will occur, then it causes a erection of this penis. So it will increase the stiffness of the penis, and the stiffness is done by the corpus cavernosa. So if you cross section this penis, you will find the three cylindrical bodies. Out of this, the two are the corpus cavernosa and one is corpus spongiosum. So if you cross section the penis, you will see structure like this, and there will be two corpus cavernosa and one corpus spongiosum. Corpus spongiosum carries the urethra. Urethra will go there, and there are two corpus cavernosa. And this corpus cavernosa has a rich supply of venous plexus. So the blood supply will be there, and they are rich in the venous plexus. So whenever the sexual desire will be there, and sexual act will perform, during that it will increase blood supply to this corpus cavernosa, and the blood will not allow to go back, so blood will keep on accumulating, and that will causes they are surrounded with a tight capsule like structure, and that will causes a stiffness in the corpus cavernosa, and that gives stiffness to the penis, and that help us to perform the intercourse or copulation, and help us to reproduce the next generation. Now, how that stiffness occurs is simple. You can take example of balloon. Balloon में हवा नहीं होती, तो it will very saggy, and when you blow the air in that balloon, or if you blow the water in that balloon, it will become more of stiffer like structure. In same way, here it occurs. So these are not a muscle, और मसल कॉन्ट्रैक्शन नहीं होता. अगर मसल कॉन्ट्रैक्शन होता तो पेनिस के साइज छोटी हो जाती. बट हियर द blood is pumped into the corpus cavernosa, and that will create a stiffness in the corpus cavernosa. More is the blood, more stiffer will be the corpus cavernosa, and more hard will be the penis. Then will make more easy to perform the copulation or sexual intercourse. Okay. Any questions? Any doubt?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Now we'll see the primary organ of the reproduction, that is testes, and we'll see little bit detailed structure of the testes. Testes are located in the scrotal sac outside the abdominal cavity, is suspended by the one cord-like structure, that is spermatic cord, which contain vas deferens, nerve supply, and also blood supply. Okay, the normal weight of the testes is somewhere around 25 gram, which ranges from 40 to 10 to 40 gram individual to individual, and as the age increases, in old age the weight will be keep on decreasing because of lack of testosterone. If you see the covering of the testes, I'm not talking about scrotal skin and all those things, we'll talk about directly testes. So it has a three type of the covering. One innermost covering is tunica vasculosa, which has a reach in the blood supply, and it is made up of loose connective tissue. So this is somewhere here. These are the structure. This is a tunica vasculosa. So this is tunica vasculosa, which forms the covering to the testes. After this, there will be the another, which is made up of the collagen fibers, a tightly packed collagen fibers, which is much tougher and has an elastic in nature, is formed by the collagen fibers, and that is this layer is tunica vaginalis. So this is a tunica vaginalis. So if you see this red line I'm drawing, this structure is tunica vaginalis, and it keep these all ductules and everything in a compact shell. And sorry, tunica albuginisa. And above the tunica albuginisa, there is a much tougher covering, and which has some contractile nature also, like it's made of mesoepithelium cell, and that is tunica vaginalis. So this is outer layer is a tunica vaginalis. And this all these three layers provide the protection to the testes. So when it is any physical trauma or any blow occur, it prevents the damage to the testes. Apart from this, because of the lubrication, if you see the tunica albuginea, tunica vaginalis, there will be the fluid in between, and that allows the free movement of the testes in the scrotum. So it prevents the friction also. Now, their clinical application, if you want to see, if there any injury occur or any infection occur, normally what happens, the secretions occur in the tunica albuginisa, and that secretion will be absorbed by the tunica vaginalis. And when there's some disturbance occur, and if there is increase in secretion, or if there is a decrease in absorption by the tunica vaginalis, the fluid will start accumulating between the gap between tunica albuginisa and tunica vaginalis, and that is called hydrocele, increase in the size of the testis. And then we can, if we don't treat it, that fluid is accumulated, it is prone for the infection, it can get infected, and it can damage the testis. So to prevent that, what we can do, we can cover the opening of tunica vaginalis, and we'll just open it and we'll stitch it back, so that water fluid coming from the tunica albuginisa will directly goes into the scrotal skin, and scrotal skin will be reabsorb those fluid, and it doesn't allow fluid to accumulate. So that is a treatment for the hydrocele, and it's a bread and butter for the surgery because it is a very common type of the surgery which is performed. Then come to the blood supply. Testes are supplied by the testicular arteries that directly arise from the abdominal or aorta. So they doesn't do anything; they directly arise from the abdominal aorta, and this anastomosis with the artery is supplied by duct venous and forms a network-like structure. While venous blood is drained by the testicular veins, which arise from both testes and epididymis and form the pampiniform plexus around the testes, and then these pampiniform plexus form the mechanism to regulate the temperature of the testes. So that is usually lower temperature as compared to normal body temperature. It also has a lymphatic drainage. The lymphatic drain from the testicle goes into lateral aortic lymph nodes and pre-aortic lymph nodes, which are usually non-palpables. So these are lumbar lymph nodes and pre-aortic lymph nodes, which are usually not non-palpable. Nerve supply, autonomic nerve supply tested by the testicular plexus, which usually surround the testicular artery, and also parasympathetic will come from the these segments come from the T7 segment. So when a damage occur below T7 segment, it does cause paraplegia, but testicular functions or other functions will be remain normal because T7 is remain intact. If damage occur above T7, then sexual function might be affected. Then come to the structure, microscopic structure of the testis. So when we take a histopathological section of the testis and we'll observe microscope, you will see the small lobules. These are called seminiferous tubules. Okay, so these form small tubular structures, and if you see here, this diagram, all these are nothing but these seminiferous tubules, and these are we seeing the cross sectional structure of these seminiferous tubules. So this testes are divided into septas into different compartment, and each compartment of the testis will contain 2 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Within these seminiferous tubules, between this there is interstitial spaces, and where you will see that another type of the cell. These are called the Leydig cells. Leydig cells are the cells which produce testosterone, hormone testosterone, and this seminiferous tubule is somewhere around 80 centimeter long, and it almost contribute 80 to 90% of total testicular volume, and its diameter is somewhere around 150 micron. It is very much convoluted, and it goes and remain into testis, and straight part will goes at the end of the testis where it attaches to the epididymis. So if you see the closure structure of these seminiferous tubules, okay, if you see the more detailed structure of the seminiferous tubules, then you will see the cross sectional, and there will be the outer layer that is called tunica papilla. On this there will be the basement membrane, and from basement membrane there is a long pyramidal cell, and that is called sertoli cell. Okay, the sertoli cells will lie on this basement membrane. Apart from this, there will be a basal germinal cell. Okay, that is called spermatogenic cell. There are multiple germinal cells there will be there, and these sertoli cells are also called as a supportive cells. These are the germinal cells, or there are spermatogenic cells, are the cells which are multiply and differentiated into sperms, while sertoli cells will support the formation of spermatogenesis. If you see the nucleus of the sertoli cell, it is somewhere at the base of the sertoli cell. So first we'll talk about structure of the spermatogenics. Okay. First we'll talk the structure of the sertoli cell. It is a sertoli cells which somewhere around pyramidal in the shape, where the base is at the basal lamina, and the nucleus is also present at the base of the sertoli cells. And its length is extended from the base of the lamina till the center of the seminiferous tubule. These sertoli cells produce the site for the maturation of the spermatogenesis. So, whenever the sperms occur, they will keep on hanging on these sertoli cells, and they will keep on taking nutrition from the sertoli cell. And once the sperm is formed, the sperms will always attach here at the tip of the sertoli cells. So all these spermatozoa allow sertoli cells. Second important function of this sertoli cells, it forms a tight junction with the basal lamina, and it doesn't allow blood to enter into the testes, and it will form the testicular blood barrier. Now, why this testicular blood barrier is important? Because when we are talking about the sperms, sperms are haploid in nature, so they doesn't contain same type of the genetic material as that normal cell are there. Second thing, these are various permission combination of the sperms are occurring when there are mitotic divisions occur. There are various mixing of the sperms, and new type of the genetic structures will be there, and that can be antigenic, and our body can respond them as a foreign bodies. So if blood comes, immune system will they come in contact with the immune cells, and immune cells can react against those sperms. So that doesn't occur because of presence of testicular blood barrier. Apart from this, okay, so come to the function of sperm. It found that like physical barrier, so from blood-brain barrier, also it provides us physical support and nutrition to the sperms. Then whenever it also sertoli cell also has a phagocytic capacity, and any sperms which is defective or not properly, or residual bodies of the sperms will be phagocytosed by these sertoli cells and recycle those material for the next generation nutrition to the next sperm formation. Then blood-brain barrier we already described. Other functions of sertoli cells, they provide the Mullerian duct inhibiting factor. That is important in intrauterine life. When in intrauterine life, whenever Y chromosome is present in the fetus, that will has a Y region section, and on that they will increase the formation of these factors in the sertoli cells, and that will inhibit the Mullerian duct, which are responsible for the formation of female genital tract. And because of by inhibiting Mullerian duct, and it also stimulates the formation of or development of the Wolferian duct, which is responsible for the male genital system. And this is how it helps us to differentiate between the sex from male and female. It also secretes another chemical inhibin that inhibit the secretion of the FSH and also gonadotropin releasing hormone. Then it also produces a chemical that is called androgen binding protein or androgen binding globulin. And this is important because of the presence of androgen binding globulin. Whatever testosterone is secreted by the Leydig cells will immediately combine with this androgen binding globulin, which is present in the seminiferous tubules, and increase the concentration of the testosterone within the seminiferous tubules. And that high concentration of the testosterone is very important for the production of the sperms and maturation of the sperms. Then it also releases the estrogen hormone. It is one of the source of the estrogen in male. It also produces a protein like transferrin and ceruloplasmin, which is important for the transport of the protein and iron and copper, which is important for the maturation of the then it also produces a plasminogen activator. This plasminogen activator will activate the plasmin, which has a proteolytic activity, and that can disturb the tight junction and allows the mature sperms to move from the basal laminar compartment into the epididymis. Then it is rich in the potassium and bicarbonate fluid, and that is help to provide a favorable environment for the spermatozoa and also provide the driving force for the spermatozoa to move away from the seminiferous tubules and goes into the epididymis. Okay. Then come to the spermatogenic cells. These are usually lie in between the circular cells, and it is arranged in a 4 to 8 layers. And with the 8 layers, it will become a more and more matured cells as it goes from the base. Base will be the basic spermatocytes or spermatogonia, and as it goes to the apical layer, it will form more matured like late spermatids or spermatozoa. They directly participate in the gamete formation or sperm formation. Then come to the functions of the testes. Can we take a 5 minutes break?
Okay, sir. As you
Okay,
wish.
sir.
You can read this and then we'll start after 5 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now come to the most important function of the testis, that is spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis occur in germinal cells uh, or spermatogonial cell, that is called spermatogonia, and it happens in 5 phases. Spermatogenesis occur in 5 phases. In first phase, it has a mitotic division of the spermatogonia, and it divided somewhere around 5 times. So from one spermatogonia, it divided into 5 times. It will become two. Then from two, it become four. From four, it become eight. And after 5 time division, from one spermatogonia, 32 spermatogonia will form, and these all contain diploid number of the genes. It is about the number of the chromosomes present. So normally in normal cells we call it as a 2n number. That is number of pair of the cells. So diploid number means जो normal cells में जितना होता है उतना ही. So we need this number of the sperms for cell to survive. So it contains diploid number of the sperms at the phase 1. Then come to the phase 2. In phase 2, uh, it causes a division, but during that division, it causes a multiplication of the genetic material. So there is increase in the number of the chromosomes. Instead of double chromosomes, it will become 4 times of the chromosomes. So it will become triploid number. That is called a chromatid duplication occurs. So it increases the number of chromosomes, and the number of the cells will be same in the second phase. That is somewhere around 32, which actually contains 64 number of the primary spermatocytes. It doubled and it contains 64 number of the primary spermatocytes. Then come to the phase 3, where again it goes into the now meiotic division. What is what we call meiotic division? In meiotic division, it divided and split into half of the number of chromosomes. So during this meiotic division, there is a 4 number of chromatic duplication will be there. It will again increase the number of the spermatocytes. That will become 128 spermatocytes, which contain diploid number of chromosome. Then there will be second mitotic division, where it will again half the number of chromatids. That is, it become now haploid number of the chromatid. And here this point where the from cell from diploid, it will become haploid in a phase 3. So sometimes you might get MCQs at what stage the number of chromosome decreased to half, that occur in phase 2. And now number of the total spermatocytes forms from the one germinal cells or spermatogonic cell, that is somewhere 256. And then it goes to the phase 4, where it mitotically divide. Now there is no further decrease in the chromatid content, and it will remain the same number of the chromatid, but it will double the number of the sperms. That is somewhere around 250. During this mitotic occur, this will form the two different part of the cells, and that will extension will be there. And phase 4, that extended portion will be removed, and this is called residual bodies. The residual bodies will remove from the sperms, and mature spermatozoa will be formed. But at this fourth phase, though there is a mature spermatozoa is formed, but they are not able to move. They are not motile. All the organelles and everything will be oriented themselves and perform that typical spermatic shape. They will arrange typical spermatic shape. Head will be the form, body will be form, and tail will be the form. And these spermatozoa will attach themselves into the circular cells. They invaginate the cell membrane of the circular cells, and they'll attach them to the cytoplasm of the circular cells. They'll keep on taking the nutrition from the Sertoli cells. Once the mature spermatozoa will form, the structure will look like this. It will made up of 3 parts. One is a head, then neck, and then middle piece or tail part. So head, neck, and tail part. Tail part divided into 3 portions: middle piece, principal piece, and end piece. So if you see, come to the whole length of the spermatozoa is somewhere around one of the largest cell in the body, that is somewhere around 55 to 65 micron in the length, and head which contributes some around 4 to 5 micron in the length. It is a flattened at anteroposteriorly. It is not like a this type of the structure. It is more of the flattened structure. So it is flat on the anteroposteriorly and triangular shape in laterally. So there will be the flattened shape and the triangular or pyramidal type of the shape. Uh, uh, anteriorly, and front is not a pointed, but it is more of blunt or oval shape in front of the sperms. Apart from this, head of the sperm also contain one cap. So it contains the cap, and that cap is nothing but the modified form of the endoplasmic reticulum, and that is called acrosomes. This contains strong proteolytic enzymes, and whenever a fertilization occurs, these acrosomes opens and release the hydrolysis enzyme, proteolytic enzyme, and also acid phosphatase, and it helps to digest the membrane of the ovum and allow the sperms to enter inside the ovum. This is how it causes a fertilization of the process will occur, and this is called a decapitalization of the sperm. Then come to the neck. Neck is a very small portion which is constricted portion between the tail of the sperms and body, and it contains a centrioles. Centrioles, you know that important for the uh, cell division. Those centrioles will be arranged themselves in the center, and this provide the base for the principal piece of the or central flagellar space or motile space ka attachment will occur at this centriole, and then it continues as a tail of the sperm, which is divided into three different parts: middle space, principal piece, and end space. Out of this, middle piece are rich in the uh, mitochondria. So they contain this structure. What you are seeing is a spiral shape of the large mitochondria, and they provide a high amount of the energy. Then the central portion is called axoneme. So this is a central portion which is called axoneme, and the axoneme will forms a present throughout the tail of the sperms, and is made up of pairs of the contractile protein. These are called microtubules. This is just like a droplet. So there are 10 pairs of these contractile protein. 9 is surrounded. Central is one pair will be there. So total 10 pairs will be there, and they help us for the motility of the tubules. Apart from this, there will be the coarse fibrils will be present close to these pairs, and they are formed like a petal shape, and they are extended throughout the uh, end piece of the throughout the till the middle piece, and there is not present in principal piece or end piece. Okay, and this whole structure will be covered with the coarse fibrous sheath. This whole structure will covered with the coarse fibrous sheath, and then it is surrounded by the spiral mitochondria. These mitochondria is abundant in the there, and they produce large amount of the ATPs. And that large amount of ATPs are required for the motility of the tail. And then these mitochondria covered by the another plasma membrane, and that cover entire sperm. Okay. Now we come to principal piece. The principal piece contain high number of the calcium channels that are called Casper's proteins. And this whenever the mitochondria is activated, ATP will be there. It opens this some of the calcium channels and increase the calcium entry, and that causes a contraction of the flagellum and causes motility of the sperms. Now, how the sperm stored in the body, or how many days it will store? There are many concepts in our body. In people, like sperms is formed immediately just before the copulation. It is not so. Sperms continuously keep on forming in our body after reproductive age, and they will stored. They can stored for about a month in epididymis, and they remain fertile up to a month. Each day we form somewhere around 120 million sperms is formed each day, and they stored in the epididymis and vas deferens, and there they will keep on maturing, and nutrition will also be provided, and they will remain there viable and fertile for about a month. Then come to the maturation and capillarization. The epididymis helps to mature the sperms, and it keep on increasing the motility. But still, in the epididymis, they acquired motility, but they doesn't form the motility. They remain immotile. Then once the sperms will move and mix with the seminal vesicles and prostate secretions, where they just before ejaculation they mix with these both secretion, and with the help of the secretion they attain their full motility just after ejaculation. Moment semen ejaculate, sperms will attain motility. Okay, and then they able to motile in female genital tract. Okay. Then there are some factors also present in female genital tract which helps to move the sperm. So one is uh, sperms are only viable for 1 to 10 hours in female genital tract because of hostile nature of the female genital tract. The pH of the female genital tract is little bit lower as compared to pH of semen, and that's why they are not viable for more than 1 to 10 hours. So sperm has only 1 to 10 hours to reach for the fertilization. So it has to move from the vagina to go to cervix, then uterus, and then it has to go to the ampulla of fallopian to where it is ovum is waiting for the sperms, and then it has to be fertilized. And the before fertilization, final stage of the fertilization is the capacitation of the sperms. So the cholesterol is present in the acrosomal membrane, and that as it keep on moving, it decreases the cholesterol content, and it will make the acrosomal membrane weaker and weaker. And once it reach to the close to the ovum, calcium ions will be channels will be open, and the calcium ions will enter into the acrosome member, and that will causes the activation of the enzymes present in the acrosome membrane that will release the enzyme from the acrosomes, and that is called capacitation of the sperms. And once this enzyme will release, it will uh, once this enzyme will release, it will causes digestion of the membrane of the ovum also, and sperms will enter into the ovum. Okay, now come to the semen. This will use the semen for the during examination. That time we're talking before doing for the examination of semen of any male, it has to be keep abstinence of the sexual activity for 2 days. Then only you could able to find a proper report for the whether that person is fertile or not. So after 2 days of abstinence, when we will collect the semen, it has to be volume somewhere around 2.5 to 3.5 ml with each ejaculation. And as the ejaculation will keep on increasing, the volume will be keep on decreasing. So first ejaculation में ही आपका 2.5 to 3.5 आना चाहिए. If you see the physical appearance, it is somewhere around milky color because of prostatic secretion, and it has specific gravity which is somewhere around 1.028, and it is in alkaline natures. If any semen has an acidic nature, then there has to be chances of infection. The alkaline nature is because of the secretion of the both seminal vesicle and prostatic secretion, and that is important because this alkaline semen will goes to the vaginal secretion, and which has a pH of the vagina is somewhere around 4 to 6, and where it will neutralize. If we doesn't have the alkaline nature of the semen, then the sperms will immediately die in vaginal secretion. When the pH decreases a little bit, that sperms will become more motile, and that will increase the motility of the sperms which is by decreasing pH little bit. Okay, then if you see the semen, immediately after ejaculation, semen will get coagulated, and that coagulation occurs because of presence of clotting factors within the semen. And after 10 to 15 to 30 minutes, it will again undergoes the liquefaction. That is because of activation of the plasmin. Plasminogen will be there which get activated, and that will split the coagulation, and it again become liquid. The coagulation is important because when during sexual act, when we deposit the semen into female vagina, if it is in the liquid form, it will spill out from the vagina. That should not happen. For that, it has to be coagulation. It will stick to the wall of the vagina, and it will remain there. And once the sexual act is over, and then after it liquefies, then it will remain in that vaginal tract, and then it can goes into the cervix, and then from cervix it can goes into the uterine cavity. For that, coagulation is very important. If clotting doesn't occur, then this will not be uh, uh, will there, and maximum semen will be moved out from the vagina. Then come the composition of the semen. It is a normal count of the sperms is somewhere around 35 to 200 millions per ml, and on an average it is 100 millions per ml. But for our clinical point of view, minimum it has to be 20 million per ml. If sperms count is less than 20 million per ml, then we call it as a hypospermia, and that male is infertile, or that male will not able to reproduce. Okay, so with this so low number of the sperms, uh, that male will not able to reproduce. So there has to be minimum 20 million of the sperms count. So इसको ध्यान में रखना 20 millions. And if there is no sperms present, then that situation we call it as a azoospermia. Then if you come to secretion, the 60% of the total seminal volume will be provided by the seminal vesicles. Seminal volume will provided by the secretion from the seminal vesicles. It is a mucoid nature and viscous fluid. It also has a slightly alkaline in nature, and it contains fructose, phosphocholine, ergothrin, and ascorbic acid and prostaglandin that helpful for the survival of the sperms in female genital tract, and also fructose provides nutrition to the sperms in female genital tract. So the seminal vesicle provide nutrition, and also it responsible for the coagulation. So it contains fibrinogen also present in seminal fluid, and that help in the coagulation of the semen. And the presence of the prostaglandin in seminal vesicle, it increases the attraction towards the worm and guide the sperms to move towards the worm. So it is increases the moment towards the worm. Then come to the second secretion is added to the prostatic gland secretion, which is contribute 10% of the total semen volume. It is milky-line and highly alkaline in nature, and it helps to maintain the optimum pH in vaginal tract by neutralizing the pH of the vagina. That makes the sperms for more viable and more motile in female genital tract. It also helps in clotting of the semen by activating the fibrinogen and help in the coagulation of the fibrinogen is present in the seminal vesicles, and it's activated by the secretions from the prostatic gland. Then comes to secretion of the bulbourethral gland. These are mucoid secretion, and which provides the mucoid consistency to the semen that helps the semen to lodge into the vaginal tract and make the proper environment for the semen sperms to be a motile. Then come to the endocrine function of the testis. Testes provide two type of the hormones. One is androgen, that is sex hormones, male sex hormone. High concentration is produced by the Leydig cells. And Sertolus is also produce small amount of estrogen, inhibin, and activin. So first we'll talk about testosterone or androgen hormones. It is one of the most important male sex hormone, and it is started in intrauterine life, and it is responsible for the sex determination in infancy. That's why it is high concentration in early infancy also, and then its concentration again increases in a just before puberty. As the age increases after 40, the concentration starts slowly decreasing, and it can be almost zero at the age of 18. In a normal man will secrete around 4 to 9 milligram of testosterone daily, and it contributes the concentration of 0.65 microgram per 100 ml of the blood. Out of these, 98% of the testosterone are, as they are lipid, they cannot be stay for free form in the blood. So 90% of the testosterone are bind with the plasma proteins. Out of these, almost 70% is albumin and 30% is globulin, and they remain in the form of uh, bind forms. So bind forms are not physiologically active. So only the 2% form, which are free, they are physiologically active, and they show their effect on a target tissue. So what are the functions of the testosterone? Okay, other two type of the testosterone, androstenedione and dihydrotestosterone. Dihydrotestosterone forms the 20% of the total testosterone, and they are physiologically more active as compared to testosterone. Then androgen is also secreted by the adrenal cortex. They also contain the same testosterone, adrenosterone, and dihydroprednisterone. That also contribute in an androgenic effect, not only in the male but also in a female. Now, how the androgen synthesized? So it is synthesized from the cholesterol. So all steroid hormones are synthesized from the cholesterol. The important enzyme is CYP11AI. That enzyme will convert cholesterol into 5-inch, that is pregnenolone. And this is a rate limiting step of the testosterone synthesis. From there, two type of the different will be there. Pathway will be there. One is CYP70, where 70 alpha hydroxylase will be there and form 70 alpha hydroxy pregnenolone, and then again it hydroxylase and it form dehydroxy epiandrosterone by same enzyme, and then it forms the androstenedione, and then androstenedione can convert it into testosterone. Second step is another enzyme called HSD2, and where it converted pregnenolone into progesterone, then progesterone is converted to androstenedione, and then androstenedione will convert it into testosterone, and this is how the testosterone will release into the body. Either by 5 alpha reductase, it can form testosterone, either in the testes or in the tissue, and there active testosterone will be available for their action. So out of this, the CYP is very one important first rate limiting step, and then if some problem occurs, suppose this enzyme is defective, then there is more of the progesterone and testosterone will be formed. If this hormone is defective, then more of the androstenedione and testosterone will be formed. Now come to the functions of the androgen. First, it helps in a sex differentiation and also helps in a descent of the testes. Then it at the puberty, it helps for the maturations and development of the external genital and secondary sexual character, and also psychological behavior will be there. And in adult also, it provide and is responsible for the spermatogenesis and also secondary sexual character. So first we'll talk what its role in fetus or just before birth. What it does just before birth, when testosterone is secreted, it forms the gonadal differentiation. It acts on a primordial sex ridge, and where it stimulate the formation of testes and inhibit the formation of ovary. That is, it makes the gonadal sex differentiation. Not only that, it also make a genital differentiation. It inhibit the Mullerian duct and prevent the formation of female genital tract, and uh, uh, st- uh, stimulate the development of Wolferian duct, and helps us to formation of male genital duct. So genital differentiation also occur because of presence of testes. Not only that, in normally testes develop in the abdomen in intrauterine life, and just before the birth, effect of the testosterone causes a descent of the testes from abdomen to the scrotum, and for the testosterone is very important. If testosterone absent, then descent will not able to occur, and testes might be remain into the abdomen, and that mechanism is called cryptorchidism, or that disease is called cryptorchidism. Then what is function in the puberty? It helps to development of external genitalia. It increases the size of the scrotal sac. It increases the size of the penis. It also causes a pigmentation or dark color of the penis and scrotal scales, and it also causes a increased folding or rugal folds on the scrotal skin. Second, it also affects the accessory sex organs, like it causes enlargement of seminal vesicles, enlargement of the prostate gland, and also increases their secretion. So these are few changes which occur in secondary sexual characters. You can go through how male and female will be there. You can read. I will share this picture with you. Then its effect on psychology. Psychologically, it create a male sexual pattern development. like we like boys like a girls, girls like a female. So liking to the female is a male sexual uh, behavior. So that liking for the opposite sex will be developed because of presence of testosterone. If testosterone is not there, then you may not like a female. So that is one thing which helps for your sexual orientation or psychological orientation will be there. Apart from this, it also changes the various behaviors. Like it reduces the shyness in your body, so you will become less shy now. You'll become more aggressive, quick responsive to the things. All those things will be there. So male type of the dominant behavior will be developed because of presence of testosterone. So it also develop aggressive behavior. Apart from this, it is important for your sexual drive and sexual desire. That is called libido. So it initiates your sexual drive and also initiate your erectile functions. But this functions is only responsible for the initiation in the puberty age. If testosterone is not there, then it can reduce your libido and your erectile functions. But this testosterone is not required once you develop your sexual behavior, and after that, if there is decrease in concentration of the testosterone, that will not be responsible for your loss of libido or decrease function. Though the little bit decrease in libido, but you can have your sexual drive and erectile function even if the decreased testosterone concentration. Then it also has effect on metabolism. So it increases the positive nitrogen balance. That what does it means? It increases the protein synthesis than protein degradation. So there's more and more protein synthesis will increase, and that helps us to increase the growth of the body. So there will sudden accelerated growth of the body before puberty, at the time of puberty, because of effect of testosterone. Your muscles will be developed very much. So muscular growth is also causes because of testosterone if it is supported with the proper exercise. Then in adults, it is responsible for the secondary sexual characters like androgenic pattern of hair growth, like a beard and mustaches, androgenic baldness, then hair growth on whole body. All those things will be developed because of presence of testosterone. Then pubic hair, axillary hairs will be more coarse and dark in male because of effect of testosterone. Then your psychological behavior like a sexual potency, like the opposite sex, attitude, aggressive nature also depend upon the testosterone. So testosterone is responsible for all those things. Then proper maintenance of the bone is very important function of the testosterone. So 1 minute. So it causes a spermatogenesis. Testosterone is responsible for the spermatogenesis. The testosterone also, uh, along with the FSH, it will increase the stimulate the germ cell and circular cell both, and increase the formation of the sperms. So whenever the decreased testosterone concentration in the body, it can cause sterility or infertility in the male. Then testosterone directly stimulates the erythropoiesis and also increases the effect of the erythropoietin on the erythropoiesis. So in both way, it increases the formation of more and more RBC and hemoglobin synthesis. And that's the male has a higher RBC count and hemoglobin concentration as compared to female because of presence of testosterone. This effect will not be seen by the estrogen. Then it causes a male pattern of the fat deposition, and there are more of the deposition of the fat on the center of the body as compared to female. It also causes a more formation of low density lipoprotein cholesterol, and that can deposit into the blood vessels as compared to high density lipoprotein that can increase the atherosclerosis, and that's why male has more chances of heart attack as compared to female before the menarche. After menarche, that effect of the estrogen will be lost. Estrogen has decreased the low density lipoprotein and increased the high density lipoprotein, so that effect will be lost. And then after menarche, there will be equal chances of heart attack. Sorry, after menopause, there will be equal chances of the heart attack in a male and female. This is also testosterone helps to regulate the secretion of the gonadotropin hormones, like luteinizing releasing hormone or luteinizing hormone will be inhibited by the testosterone by negative feedback mechanism. Then factors controlling spermatogenesis. First is the hypothalamus. Uh, uh, Before puberty, hypothalamus is very much sensitive to the sex hormone. So even a small amount of that sex hormone which present in the body will keep on inhibiting the hypothalamus by negative feedback mechanism. So a small amount of the testosterone which present will be keep on inhibiting the hypothalamus. But with some more mechanism at the time of puberty, hypothalamic cells become mature. We call it a maturation. What mechanism we don't know. It become more mature and they reduce the sensitivity to the sex hormones. So now they are not that much sensitive to the sex hormone, and that removes the negative feedback effect of sex hormone, and that helps to release the gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. Once the GnRH is released from the hypothalamus, it will directly stimulate the LH and FSH and increase secretion of the LH and FSH, and that LH and FSH will has its effect on a different body part and initiate the puberty. Now, whenever this increased LH and FSH secretion by the anterior pituitary hormone, this FSH will act on Sertoli cells and increase formation of the spermatid into the sperms. It also increased secretion of the ABP, that is androgen binding protein, and that increased the concentration of the testosterone within the seminiferous tubule. FSH also promote the synthesis or the inhibition by the Sertoli cells, which has the inhibitory effect on the secretion of the FSH. So the negative feedback mechanism will be developed by the FSH. FSH also increases the synthesis of the testosterone by directly acting on a LH receptors present on Leydig cells. So it increases the synthesis of the LH receptors on the Leydig cells. So it increases the uh, LH effect on a Leydig cell by FSH. Now LH hormone, it stimulates the Leydig cell to form the more and more testosterone. And testosterone is important for the formation of normal spermatogenesis. Apart from this, growth hormone also plays very important role in spermatogenesis. They are very important for the cell division of the spermatogonia. And if growth hormone is absent, then the spermatogenesis will be very deficient or almost absent. And that you can see in pituitary drop, where no growth hormone is there, and that can causes infertility in the pituitary drop because of absence of spermatogenesis. Then role of the testicular hormones like testosterone is help to act on cellular cell and germ cells and helps in spermatogenesis. Then uh, other hormones which has a regulatory feedback mechanism. One is inhibin act on anti-pituitary and directly inhibit the FSH secretion, while testosterone and estrogen inhibit LH secretion. Then applied aspect, cryptorchidism, extirpation, hypogonadism, and hypergonadism. Cryptorchidism is a when testis doesn't descend down in the infant and then remain in the abdomen. That condition is called cryptorchidism. Extirpation when we surgically remove the testis from the male. Either it can be removed before puberty or it can be after puberty. In both conditions, there will be the different effect on the male. Then hypogonadism in the male and hypergonadism in the male. So first we'll talk about cryptorchidism. When the testes are not descended, it can be unilateral or bilateral. If both bilateral testes are not descended, then it can cause permanent sterility in the individual if it is not treated immediately, because of the high temperature in the abdomen will damage all spermatogonia cells, and there will be no more spermatogenesis even after 2-3 years. If we bring back the testis to outside the abdominal cavity, the testis is completely damaged, so it will not be possible. So it is essential to treat this patient as early as possible. So how we can treat? If the inguinal canal is large enough and can allow the passage of the testis, then we can give the injection of testosterone or gonadotropin hormone, and that can stimulate the down of descent of the testis. Provided testis is quite lower position in the abdomen. If it at the level of the kidney, then This testosterone will not work on this. But if it is lower, close to the inguinal canal, then it can work. Or we can surgically correct and bring the testis to the scrotum. That can be done surgically, and if it is done immediately, then we can prevent a sterility in the male, and the testis will be normal. If after 2-3 years, if we are doing, then it keep damage testis completely, and those testes are very much prone for the testicular malignancies. So it is better to remove the testes after 2-3 years than bringing it back to the scrotum. Then extirpation is also called as castration, that is removal of the testes from the male. And if it occurs before puberty, it will show no signs of mm, uh, sexual development in that patient. So external genitalia will be very much underdeveloped. Accessory organs will also very much underdeveloped. Secondary sexual characters will not be that much developed. So there will be no hair growth on the face, trunk, or axilla. Very scanty hairs. Feminine high pitch voice will be there like a child. Muscle mass and shoulder girdle will be very very poorly developed, and body configuration more like that of the female, as like a fat deposition on the buttock, hip, and breast areas will be there. And bones delay, because of delayed epiphysis, the bone growth will be very much high, so there will thin and weak bone will be growth, but height will be increase. And whenever the extirpation occurs before puberty, that mechanism is called aneuploidism. Then come to the when extirpation occurs after puberty. Then the secondary sexual characters and accessory organs are very much developed because of presence of testosterone before puberty. So it is not going to after removal, the muscular features will be remain constant. It will not going to affect like hair growth, muscular development, and voice will almost same. But after development, the problem will be that the accessory organs like seminal vesicle posterior will undergo hypertrophy. Penis will be of normal size. Sexual desire and sexual activity will be slightly affected or may not affected at all. Erection will be there, but ejaculation will not occur because of there is no sperms, no semen will not be there. So there is because of absence of the semen, ejaculation is rarely occur, and other things will be almost normal. Is sexual behavior, intelligence, every lifespan, everything will be normal after this injurism. Now, where we do this extirpation, where we expected malignancy of the testes, whenever we diagnose and we see CA malignancy of testes, that time we'll remove the testes surgically. Then come to hypogonadism. It can be congenital non-function testes, underdevelopment of the testes, cryptorchism, or when we'll remove, or when there is absence of the androgenic receptors in the testes. All these conditions can lead to decreased development or absence of the testicular functions. Okay. What the hypogonadism occur? It will cause permanent sterility, underdevelopment of external genitalia and secondary sexual character, and abnormal bone growth. This is one condition called Forlich syndrome, where uh, it occurs because of hypothalamic absence. There is a uh, lack of secretion of LH and FSH. Either it is because of decreased GnRH release, or other it is because of damage to the pituitary. This will lead to hypogonadism, which has a sexual organ is normal, but hormones are not there, and this person usually eat too much because of abnormal pituitary growth and can cause obesity. Then come to hypergonadism of the male. Hypergonadism may occur when there is excessive secretion of testosterone hormone that can be occur because of tumor of Leydig cell. It will causes a rapid growth or early puberty. Also, it can causes because of early puberty, the early closure of epiphysis. So height will be very very less, but a person will be very much muscular. Bone will be very very much thick, and growth will be rapid. Excessive secondary sexual organs will be developed. Secondary sexual character will develop even at the early age, and there will not, because of testosterone will be high. So the testosterone will convert it into estrogen, by the fat tissue, and because of high concentration of estrogen, it will causes a gynecomastia, that is the development of the breast in male. That's all for the today. Any questions? Any doubt? Any questions? Any doubt?
No, sir.
No, sir.
ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच। ऑलरेडी मैंने रिकॉर्ड किया, किसी ने क्लास अगर मिस कर लिया होगा तो मैं यूट्यूब चैनल पे डाल दूंगा, यू कैन गो एंड ओके, थैंक यू, you can go and see on that YouTube channel, so it will be recorded. Okay.
Okay.